Yeah, just to address the elephant in the room, I'm not Vic Searl, and I've also not worn stripes, which I've now realised is an absolute sham, and I should be embarrassed. Nobody tell her, please. Yes, so for anyone that doesn't know who Datahawks is, or who I am, I'm Ellie, and I am the strategy manager at Datahawks. There are two sides to our business, so we have the data analysis side. I'm sure there'll be a few people in this room that have had marketing intelligence reports from us, and we have got a data analysis piece on Toggle to share with you in a little bit. But we're going to take a break from Toggle, and we are going to talk about managed CRM, which is the side of the business that I work on. So, there we are. It's time to stop leaving money on the table, which is basically what happens if you don't utilise your CRM properly over the festive period, pretty much. And Vic has added some holly for festive appeal. These aren't my slides either, by the way, I'd like to add. I saw them for the first time this morning, so this is as much fun for me as it is for all of you. Everyone has heard Vic say this, but to be a customer business, you must be a data business. 100% everyone that works in hospitality will say, we're a customer business, we're all about our people. Our theory is that you can't be a customer business unless you are a data business. I'm going to tell you why. So we live in the era of personalization, so the expectations of the customers that sit on our CRM databases have got far higher. So a batch email is no longer enough, basically, because we are living in an era of personalization that falls into loads of categories, and we're going to talk through them. So obviously we hear this thing all the time that COVID has changed, particularly the hospitality industry, but actually the industry had changed way before COVID ever came about. This slide is a bit ironic because I wasn't born for a lot of these years, so I'm copying what Vic says for some of this. I wasn't there in the 90s. I was born in August 99, so I'm hoping this is correct. It was the era of print, really. It was about choice. This was very much, everything was offline. People didn't have websites. I don't know. You'll have to tell me. Was that correct? Let me know. I was just about here for this part. I remember websites, but yes, the 2000s, this is when everything went online. If we looked at websites from the 2000s now, we would probably all cringe at the minimal functionality, but back in the time, that was pretty big going. Everybody needed a website, but that was the extent of the expectation back in the kind of early 2000s, was that you just had to have a website. Nobody really knew why or what they were supposed to do. It just became a thing that you were sort of supposed to have one. This part I was definitely here for, and this is my generation, so it's about the experience economy. So this is when social media became massive, and a lot of businesses have really nailed this part now because it's been a thing for quite a few years now. This is the Instagram generation. This is making everything look picture perfect, making sure that it's got a right to be online. And then we've moved forward though, and now we're in the personalization era. So this is where the expectation of consumers has basically got higher. So it's no longer good enough to give the same service, the same experience to everyone just because it looks good. Consumers now want us to take it one step further and for that experience to be tailored to them and for us to know even more about them. It's not just Gen Z either, it's all groups that have these expectations. So the brands who don't know their key customer groups in intimate detail will lose them to brands who do, and this is because of the consumer expectation to be super tailored, super personalized. Nowadays, consumers are more prepared than ever to tell us more about themselves. There's more and more data sources in place. They're more and more prepared to tell us things, but they do expect us to use it. And if you're not monetizing the data you're capturing, you're leaving money on the table. So for those of you that don't know, Datahawks now have a strategic partnership with Airship and all the fantastic integrations that they have. And our whole managed CRM service works off taking all the data that's collected from those integrations and making sure that they're actually being used in your CRM strategy. Because if not, those integrations are all well and good, but you're not going to get anything from them. So, just a reminder, your CRM is not a 3D printer, and what Vic means by this, because I had to ask, was that it doesn't just sit there and print money for you. So yes, Airship does have all these fantastic integrations, and yes, it has huge capability, but if you just sit and leave it to its own devices, it's not going to make you any money. It doesn't just happen automatically. So, I'm just going to put all of this up. There we go. Your CRM is like a machine, basically, and this is what we mean by the fact that, yes, it's an absolutely great system, but when you leave it to your own devices, it doesn't just do things for you. So the quality of the performance of your output is very much based on the quality of the input when it comes to your CRM. So it's very much about the fuel that you put into the machine, so that's the data, so that's all those fantastic integrations that Airship have got, and also what you've got available inside your venue. It's about the materials, so the content that you put in it, the campaigns you're creating, the segmentation that you're doing. But it's also about the person that's running it, and we know that marketing teams are so small and so under-resourced that a lot of the time there's not somebody that's super skilled up on how to use the CRM. You know, everybody's kind of dipping in, trying to do a little bit, no one's really got time, and therefore we're doing batch sends, nothing particularly tailored, nothing too creative, and we're not getting out of it what we particularly want. And a lot of the time as well, we don't even know what we want to get out of it. CRM, for some reason, sits really low on a lot of marketing strategies because we are just doing batch sends. Nobody's skilled up on it. We're not 100% sure what we want to get out of it. So that's why we're here. And Vic told me to say at this point, I could just wrap up and say, everyone can just ring us and we'll do it for you. But if you do want to have a go yourself, then we have got some tips for how you can basically make this whole machine work better for you. The Holy Trinity of CRM, there you go. So there's 3 steps, really, to making your CRM really kind of tick for you. So segmentation is the first one. So let's do a bit of a hands up. If you do anything on the CRM, how much of it is kind of one size fits all, batch send, emails? Few sheepish hands. Do you know, I'm really impressed with the people that are shaking their heads in disgust. But no, do you know what? It's completely normal that for a lot of the time it is just batch sends. It's a time thing. It's a resource thing. It can also be a knowledge thing, which is absolutely fine. Personalization. So this is really taking that data, getting really into it, and going beyond segmentation. So segmentation can be about people's behavior. Personalization is about their characteristics and what they've told us. So this is that next layer of information that we're adding into our CRM. And then automations. This is how you can basically make money while you sleep. So this is making sure your CRM is always ticking along in the background for you. There we go. Sounds legit. So how do you do it? Here are the tips. So the first thing is to get your data in order, and this is the part that people usually don't even know where to start. So if you're on Airship, which I'm sure you all are, we've got all these amazing integrations, and that means you're already one step ahead because Airship are actually doing a lot of this for you. But it's really important to make sure that you actually know what is in your CRM, making sure all your integrations are hooked up, you know what you're getting. So what makes good data? Because it's not all good. Zero party, first party, and proof of presence. So anyone that's kind of worked with Datahawks before will have heard us talk about proof of presence data a lot. This is anything that basically puts your customer in the venue. So we don't focus on things like Instagram likes, Instagram comments, because it doesn't actually prove that anyone's been in your venue. They might like you, but it doesn't attach to a spend. You can't track that. Proof of presence data is anything like a booking, a Wi-Fi login, an order and pay receipt, anything that places them in your restaurant attached to an email address, basically. Really important, Vic's pointed out. And then we always break data into 4 types. So you've got your demographic, which actually a lot of brands don't even have an awful lot of, considering we think it's the most kind of basic band of data, you know, your age, gender. It can also be some of the more difficult to collect. A lot of the time, age and gender are like the optional fields on things, and therefore we don't get a lot of it, but it is really important. Geographic, so this is your location-based stuff. Behavioural, so that's your frequency, your recency. And then psychographic, so that is that really like top tier level of stuff. So that's when, you know, you're finding extra stuff out about your customers. So along the top here is a lot of what people tend to sort of collect just in general, just by having the integrations in place, things like that. So like I say, the age and gender, location, kids, things like that. A lot of this just by your standard integrations, you can get a lot of this out. What we want to do is we want to add all these layers in. So this might seem quite extreme, quite deep, but your ideal situation is that you are learning, you know, the lifestyles, the emotional feelings about your customers, their behavior. If you can layer all of this into your CRM, the way that you can segment your campaigns is going to be so much more granular, and you're going to have a far better return off it. So that is when our partners at StarCount come into it. So anybody that came to Made for Marketing in April will have heard Rowena at StarCount, or you may have heard of StarCount anyway. They are psychographic data experts, and they can basically map postcodes and email addresses to tell you additional things about your customers. They're amazing. But an example of this is, you've got these 2 customers, right? Kat and Nat. On paper, they look pretty much like carbon copies of each other. And so sort of same age, same order, same gender. There's nothing really that on paper would differentiate them. So when it comes to segmenting these people in your CRM, you would probably initially put them in the same pot, send them the same message, and assume that they're going to sort of behave in the same way. When we layer them with star count data, we actually find that Kat has social interests around Gymshark, women's health, Holly Willoughby, things like that. So she's very much health, which is spelt wrong. Ignore that. She's very much interested in health. That's her reason for ordering the vegan burger, is because she's into her health, she's into her fitness. That's why she's made the vegan lifestyle choice. Nat, on the other hand, has very different interests. So it's the RSPCA, it's David Attenborough, it's Patagonia. She's about the environment, which is also spelled wrong. I'm going to assume this is a font thing, and we'll move on. But basically what you've learned here is you've actually got two customers that on paper you would say, let's put them in the same group, same campaign about the vegan burger. We're going to tell them the same things, and we're going to assume they're going to behave in the same way. When you get in touch with star count and you layer all that extra data in, you've realised that actually these two customers need to go in two completely different pots. They both need to know about the vegan burger, but Kat needs to know that, you know, it's healthy, it's low calorie, it's, you know, locally sourced ingredients, it's whatever. Nat, on the other hand, she wants to know about the carbon footprint of where the ingredients have come from, the packaging that it's delivered in, things like that. And that's what's going to make those two customers convert completely differently. Context means that you can deliver the most effective brand communication strategy to achieve your objectives, which is basically what that means, is the more context you have on your customers, the better results you're going to get out of it. So, number 2 is knowing about how your base is split. So, we've got these two customers here. So, this is what everybody thinks their ideal customer looks like. It's also what most people think their customers actually look like, which is that they're really recent, they spend loads of money, they're super frequent, happy days, we haven't got a problem. And then we run the marketing intelligence report, and actually they look like that. For the most part, they're fairly recent, but they don't spend that much, and they're not that frequent. A lot of the time they've visited like one venue one time, they spent like 20 quid, 30 quid. That's the majority of the base that we're dealing with. So this is something that anyone that's had a marketing intelligence report will have seen, and this is a really important thing to kind of know about your customers. If you don't know the value split, you don't know how to talk to them, because you need to divide your attention differently with different customers. As marketers, you're really, really busy, and you've got a massive pot of people to talk to, and the bottom line of it is they're not all valuable as each other, and there's no point speaking to all of them all the time and expecting the same result. You might as well tailor your approach to the different groups and actually make the money out of people that it's going to be a bit easier for you. So by having your guests split up like this into low, mid, and high value, what we can see is, and this happens with every single brand, and this is a real brand's data, is that your low value customers are nearly always the biggest percentage, and your high value are always nearly the lowest, just because of the criteria. And the criteria is dynamic, and it'll change with every brand. But what always happens is that the highest percentage of your spend goes to that really small pot of people. And that's why usually we'd say, 10% of customers, leave them to one side, it doesn't really matter that much, but they're making up 43% of your spend. So by channeling your attention and learning more and more about that 10%, you can generate far more spend than trying to get anything out of your one-time customers who they're not really that bothered, they're not giving you anything to work with, and they're not spending an awful lot when they're in with you anyway. And we can see with their average totals, it's reflective anyway. That multiple, for anyone that's wondering, that is a calculation that we do in-house that basically represents the higher the number, the more valuable the customer. I don't know the calculation because I'm not very good at maths and I don't do the data slides, but that's what it means, is the higher the number, the more valuable the customer. And then you need to turn the insight into action, so it's great. You've got your data organised, you've layered in star count, you've got them all nicely segmented so you know who's super valuable and you want to talk to. Now we need to do something with it. Setting up your automation, so this is literally how you make money while you sleep. So most people will have welcome set up, will have post-visit feedback, and will have birthday. In most cases, that is the extent that brands are going to right now. They kind of feel like the fundamentals. Every now and again, we'll see a lapsed thrown in. But beyond that, it doesn't feel very much more tailored than that. And like Vic says, these are our kind of They're the generals, but with Airship and the way that we've got pop segments kind of already preset into the CRM, you can go so granular with your automations. When you want people targeting, what you want the message to be, you can get a huge portion of your CRM work done for you while you don't even touch it. All you have to do is maybe schedule in to check it every few months, make sure it's updated. Other than that, it can do the job for you. And the more data you have feeding into Airship, the more this is going to be really, really up to date, it's going to be really tailored, and it's just going to do the job for you, which is amazing. Let data inform your whole journey. So we've talked about CRM up to this point, but actually data can be the fundamental driving force behind your entire marketing strategy. So acquisition. With data, you can actually build social audiences. You can make decisions for your ads. It can inform that acquisition stage. Then it goes into conversion, so obviously you want to get data driving how your CRM works. And retention as well. So again, automations are a huge part of retention. You can kind of get them doing that job for you. If you've got your post-visit stuff set in, if you're using the pop segment so that you're getting automations out after every visit, retention can be looked after for you just by the data that's coming in. Like I've said before, segmentation. We saw a few hands for the kind of batch send. Yeah, we're kind of sending the same thing to everyone. We're trying, but it's really difficult. Segmentation is the first kind of change to make to the CRM strategy. Once that data's in place, once we know the value of our customers, that's when we can start segmenting people. And you can go as basic or as complex as you like, depending on what you've got in the CRM. And Airship also makes it really easy, I'd like to say, because anyone that's sent a campaign via Airship, you'll know that you've already got your pop segments in place, you've got loads of filters that you can add. A lot of the time it's just a case of sitting down, having a look at the system, seeing what's available and just trying something different. And then it's about layering in personalization. So this is what's going to make, Vic has put a lot of pictures on this. Okay, wow, we're going to check these slides next time. Personalization, so this is that extra layer. So segmentation is great, your data can inform that, so it's how many visits has somebody made, you know, what have they ordered in the past, are they high or low value, that's a really good starting point. If you want to go to the next level, and at this sort of really heavy trading time of year when you want to stand out, layering in sort of psychographic and behavioural data that allows us to personalise is what's going to make you stand out from the next brand along. So something that we talk about a lot is with allergens. If you've got the data to be able to know which guests are gluten-free, which guests are vegan, if you're layering that in and making sure that you're only ever speaking to your vegan customers about vegan dishes and you're not sending them pictures of meat, it's a bit of an instant win compared to your competitors that are sending them pictures of like steaks and things like that that's going to go straight in the bin. There's another picture. And how do we prove the impact of our actions? Proof of presence. So this is like what we spoke about before. If you're not getting a proof of presence back, it's really difficult to prove that your campaign worked. So at the moment, reports for email marketing will pretty much look like open rate, click rate, unsubscribe rate. They're all looking a bit higher. Happy days. Open rate is really quite inaccurate nowadays for the most part. We kind of all know that thanks to the iOS changes and things like that. Open rate's not giving us a lot to work with anymore. Click rates, they give you an idea of engagement, but they don't actually prove that anyone particularly did anything. An unsubscribe rate basically just means you didn't really wind anyone up. Proof of presence is you're going to be able to go back to the board and say that email generated X amount of pounds. You know, that's the kind of report we want to be taking back into the board. That's what's going to get CRM more investment. That's what's going to get the marketing department more investment, is being able to go back to the board and say we drove X amount of bookings, X amount of covers, we increased sales of this product. It's all that kind of reporting that we want to be doing. So that's why the call to action in your CRM campaigns always needs to drive a trackable action. In summary, I'd like to caveat this is the longest in summary page I've ever seen, so you might want to take a picture of it or they're going to send the slides out. She even put a camera to point out to take a picture. To be a customer business, you must be a data business. If you're not monetizing your database, you're leaving money on the table. Do you know what? I'm going to just going to let you read this yourself. Number 15, call us, is probably the one she wanted me to get to on this. 15 summary points. So yeah, there you go. take a picture of that, or they'll send it round. And that's my email address. I hope that was all right.